Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 15 of Sights on Sinnoh, the Diamond and Pearl anime podcast, as we venture onwards to Brilliant Diamond and Shining Pearl coming out later this year. Today, I'm joined once again by Greg. How are you doing today?
I'm good. How are you?
Pretty good. I did want to see if you had any opinion on the release dates for Brilliant Diamond and Shining Pearl, since we got those last time, and I didn't get a chance to ask you. And we also did get the Legends of Arceus release date, which seemed to be pretty close to one another.
I don't think they're that close.
Really?
I don't know what people expect.
I thought it would come out maybe like summer of 2022.
I mean, they said first quarter, which is January, February, or March.
Okay, that's fair.
They absolutely want to capitalize on people being super into Sinnoh. So, like, I mean,
It just makes sense in that regard.
yeah, I mean, so Diamond and Pearl will come out November 19th.
Mhm.
Most people will get it for that. A bunch of people might get it for Christmas. Diamond and Pearl aren't super long games. I mean, they can be, but that's still a month before a completely different experience comes. Like it's a completely different game.
Yeah,
And you'll still be really into Sinnoh when this other game comes out, and you'll have played through learning the history, so then you'll have great context to go back in time.
okay. I think maybe part of it also is that that's a holiday period where more people have time. At least for myself, I'll probably spend more time playing during the holidays then. So I could see myself getting through that game faster than it would if it came out somewhere else and being like, all right, give me the next thing. Come on.
Yeah,
So,
I don't think the games are going to be at all similar. Like they seem to be very different experiences. So they are set in the same world, but I don't think they'll compete with each other as much as people seem to have decided. They are.
yeah, I'm wondering though about like kids maybe that are relying on parents or other people in their life with income to buy them games and being like, oh, didn't you just like get this similar game a few months ago or like weeks maybe if they get it after the release date and being like, oh, it's the same thing, right?
I don't know that we live in a world where people are that not clued in anymore. I think
Mm,
I think if
oh.
I think there are things we know.
Mhm.
Remakes don't sell as well. They never have. So you're really only going to get hardcore Pokemon fans who are really into remakes. You might get some people who didn't play it before, but that isn't a huge audience because the DS games are still fairly easy to find.
Well, fairly
So,
easy to find, but not as affordable, at least in this past year.
well, nothing's been as affordable this day. We cannot use that as a basis. This last year is an anomaly. But generally remakes sell not as great. Oris is sort of the exception, has been the exception because Oris sold really well.
Because it's amazing.
It is probably one of the best games. There may be a jump of people jumping in, and I think having something to continue getting that audience in the same region makes sense. I think there's also not a good time, right? Like what happens in February? Nothing. What happens in March? Nothing. Like there's not any time in those first few months of the year that make more sense than the other. I think what people have is like, I can't possibly be done with Diamond and Pearl in a month. Yes, you will be. Because we still don't know if they're switching competitive battling in there, and people who do competitive battling are a tiny amount of people. Most people play through the game and never get past credits, and that's about a 20 to 30 hour experience.
See, I know that's true just from talking to people that play the game casually and picking it up, which is why I had a problem with a tweet I saw that mentioned something about when you discovered IVs and EVs, that ruined the game for you. I was like,
Oh,
which is like, what?
I I have seen the Master Trolls tweets.
Okay.
I know who that person is, and they like to
Mm.
tweet things to see what gets traction. And again, it's everything about that is clickbaity, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like everything about that sentence, while being patently not true, and everybody can say no. I mean, adding more complexity to a game has never hurt a game. It has never suffered quality for a game. What it does say and what it does to people is, and this is my biggest gripe about how people approach these games, is chances are, unlike me, your first experience with Pokemon is when you were a kid. You will never experience anything as an adult like you did as a kid because you can't forget that you've lived. So kids have such a different experience because they don't look for anything deeper because their life is still fairly shallow, right? Like they've only had X amount of experiences. So a lot of people's first interaction with these games is as a kid. It
Mm-hmm.
is you are ignoring all of these things. You've forgotten a lot about what it was like to be a kid because time for you is very fast. And so you just remember the emotions you had of playing these games, not the reality of what those games actually were when you played them. Particularly with Diamond and Pearl, which did a lot to change the meta of the game.
Yeah, it's introduced the special physical split that's been around ever since.
Double down in Neebies and Ivies. It split things out even further. It fixed a lot of issues. So to have a tweet saying you liked the games before when you didn't know about this is basically saying
You
you
didn't
like
know
things
something.
you like things better when you were a kid and didn't know better. Well, no
Mm-hmm.
kidding. That applies to everything.
You like cars and driving before you had to pay for
Before you
insurance.
actually had to pay for insurance and gas and watch out for other people and had to deal with other drivers. You liked vacations better when you didn't have to pay for them.
Yeah.
It maddens me to no end that
Mm-hmm.
everybody keeps trying to pretend that the thing they experienced as a kid was inherently better. No, you just didn't know any better.
It was your first time, and like you can say that for so many, especially of the like third versions of these games. It's like, well, if you didn't like it that much, then maybe it's because you played it after, and now you know how everything goes.
And, sometimes they change the third version a lot, which is why people really like Platinum and really like
Mm-hmm.
Emerald, because there were a bunch of changes. Whereas Crystal had Gen 2 is a terrible gen, but Crystal only added a minor bit of things. Anyways, now that we have gone way off field,
Sure.
we're talking about, again, I know you pick
Mm-hmm.
episodes because of the Pokemon, but they always have terrible titles. And I hate this title so
You
much.
know, it's I didn't know the reference until I checked the trivia. But this title, for those of you listening in, for episode 25 of Diamond and Pearl, is "Oh, do you know the Poffin Plan?" It goes a little like this. Dawn and Ash have reached
Yeah.
Floroma Town with no mention of Brock apparently on Bulbapedia. The
Yeah,
site
well,
of Dawn's next Pokemon contest as a Poffin cooking class. This whole episode kind of establishes Poffins are a new thing. They're the equivalent of Pokeblocks, which our team discovered in Hoenn. And Dawn knows how to make them because her mom is a coordinator, so she taught her when she was little. At least she thinks she knows how to make them.
and she thinks she does. I mean, and technically she does.
Mm-hmm.
And they're like, "Hey, Poffins are a thing," and Ash is like, "What's that?" It's these things. He's like, "Oh, like Pokeblocks." Yeah. Okay.
I kind of wish Dawn would have been offended by that. She's like,
Well, I kind of also wish Don. I kind of wish Don would, what are Pokeblocks? Because I
yeah,
don't think she's ever been to Hoenn.
Dawn is actually more knowledgeable than most of the new characters that we get in Ash's journey. She like knows some older Pokemon. She knows items. She knows like world
Yeah,
events. I'm like, wow,
she
this girl's got it.
she has her finger on the pulse of the nation. the world.
everything.
It's nice that they're visiting the flower town. It's a beautiful
Yes.
town in the game. It's a
Very
beautiful town
pretty.
here. They meet a weird woman who says,
Yeah.
a fantasy lady made this.
It's a very weird tone, and there's like an interesting part in the beginning where you get the narration of of like the narrator going on, and Dawn like runs up to this fountain, and she has like a weird like montage anime opening moment where like you just see an
Yeah.
exclamation point above her head, and her just like running around. It's like, what?
I mean, we are skipping the fact that the episode actually starts with Team Rocket stealing berries and
Yes,
they get wrecked by a caped figure casting
masked
magically.
vigilante.
Who could it be? Since the masked figure says its name multiple times,
Right? The one flaw.
Yeah,
Oh,
the one
man.
flaw in your plan is the fact that you scream Roserade at them. Gee, who could it be? So
Secret
Team Rocket.
identities are not making it through this episode.
Mm-mm. So, anyways, Team Rocket is snacking on berries because the fruit went bad from episode 22.
They really into fruit, like
they're
these
way into
last
fruit.
few episodes.
Yeah, so they get into this town, and this elderly woman comes by for no reasons, like, hey, this place used to be dead, and then there's a beautiful woman who was really thankful, and then all the flowers came.
Like, what?
Have fun.
Excuse me?
Like, okay.
Where did that come from?
Who are you? She doesn't have a name. They spend literally no time with her. They're just like, okay, great lady. Thanks, I guess. And then she leaves. And then they see do they see a commercial or an ad for Poffins? It's a sign. I think it's
There's
a sign
a poster on the wall, yeah.
And they're
And it
like, we
says,
don't know what that is.
and that's where we get the whole Poffin explanation, and they're like, Dawn kind of pleads with them to go, and they're like, all right, yeah, let's do it. It'll help us spawn with our Pokemon, whatever. So they walk outside the village to where this
know
place
why
is going to be.
Brock would be resistant. Like, this is Brock's jam.
It's a cook.
This is what Brock does. Brock is a cook.
Like, make something else, not just rice balls. You want to make a variety of food.
I think you mean donuts?
Oh, yeah. Sorry, excuse me. Of course. We haven't seen those in a while, though, actually.
Rice balls.
I wonder if he's...
He's moved on from donuts to something more substantial.
They like end up getting to this house.
It's a beautiful garden in a town that's supposed to be full of flowers. So I'm like, how do you know this is just her garden? Whatever.
Yeah, is it like government property or what?
Yeah, it's like, okay, it is a beautiful garden, and then Lotad and Roserade are there taking care of the garden, and then
Lotad very random, actually.
Yeah, I don't know why Lotad's there. Ash checks his Pokedex to find out who Roserade is. Except he says, I'm pretty sure he says, "Oh, I want to look at this Roserade."
He's like yelling at the house, and Dawn's like, "You're scaring that Roserade." And then there's like,
That's right. Yeah, he's screaming.
As he does.
Yes, he does. And then the lady comes, the cookie lady, who has a name.
She probably has a name.
I don't know it.
Forsythia.
Oh, yes.
Very elaborate name. Usually it's like Sarah or like Melody or something.
I mean, it's just a weird... I know it's supposed to be a play off of something, I think. I don't remember the whole...
I kept hearing Cynthia, and I'm like, what?
I mean, I kept hearing Cynthia, but well, first of all, it's for Cynthia, but it's for Cynthia, which is... Okay. I don't know why your name is that. It's clearly a combination, or we're supposed to...
Forest and synthesis. There we go. That's what I'm going with.
There we go.
But she's like, oh, hey, you're here for my class, right? Sorry, I'm late. And then they're like, all right, let's get started.
Let's get started. And then she proves to be the worst teacher ever.
Yeah, this is the cold open also of the episode where she's trying to get Ash to stir properly, and he's going too fast and then too slow when he tells her, and then it's just Ash is not great in the kitchen, is what we learned from this.
But her instructions are no faster, because you don't want it to burn. No, not that fast, because you'll splash. No, not that slow. It's going to burn again. I'm like,
make up your mind.
None of that is helpful.
Teach him like the pace or something.
A little bit faster, or come up with like a beat. It should be something. But no, she just yells at it. And meanwhile, Dawn's like, I know how to make things, and she makes her mom's poffins perfectly.
And she uses her poke etch to set the timer for it, which is like, oh my gosh!
That there's a timer function in the poke etch.
Who would have thought the watch-esque device has a timer feature on it?
Brock does fine.
Yeah. Do we even see? Oh no, he doesn't make it at all. He's taking notes the whole time.
Oh right.
Partly because he is on probation from getting close to her, because Krogan already poison jabbed him when they were at the entrance and is standing there on guard, ready to jab him again if necessary.
Fist in the air, radiating menace. Dawn tries to feed her Pokemon the poffins, and they hate it.
She's like, what's going on? I cooked it perfectly.
Yeah, and Team Rocket's around for reasons, because
they're just casually walking outside this place that they like were trying to rob last night. I guess like, what, we're already here, like
return to the scene of the crime. I don't know.
Apparently
they need to be back in. Yeah, and then all of Dawn's Pokemon are like, you're the worst cook ever.
And then one of the poffins flies out the window to where Team Rocket's walking, and Meowth just is like, oh, pretty like yummy looking thing.
thing on the ground. I'll eat it like cat do.
Even Jesse's like, careful what you put in your mouth, bro.
But of course, since it was made for Glameow,
Meowth
loves it and decides to rob them all blind.
Feline Pokemon have the exact same poffin taste as what we learn here.
They all do. And then we get backstory on why Roserade is so shy.
Best part of this episode, also.
Badu is shy because of some battle.
There was some trauma where Forsythia like learns from Nurse Joy years ago, I guess, where she goes to the Pokemon Center and Nurse Joy gives the backstory on this Badu a little bit, how it was hurt and now it's like recovering, but now it's shy again and decides to come with Forsythia.
After, Forsythia gives her the red scarf.
The very prominent red scarf in this kind of monotone-esque flashback.
So, one of the things that I've always liked about this episode is they actually deal with the fact that Rosalia and Roserade's one of the best natures is timid. And it's a nice tie-in to having a very shy but very strong and fast Roserade. Like, it's just a very subtle thing they included, probably not intentionally, but it is just, it's one of those touches that's like, okay, this is actually a cute thing, because nature-wise in the game, this is one of the best things to have. So after the trip down memory lane, Team Rocket steals everything and destroys the garden.
Yeah, they just come in with this huge machine that is netting everything, and it's a mess.
The size of the basket is unbelievable. The second thing that's unbelievable is, in what seems to be maybe 2 acres, they overfill mounds of fruit.
There's tons, like
there is
an insane amount.
2 metric tons of fruit from one garden. It's wild.
Like, it doesn't even look like it's that.
and their vacuum also sorts them. That's my other favorite, because they're in perfect color piles. So the vacuum that they're sucking everything up is also a sorting machine by color. Sure.
Yeah, they just have these mounds behind them that are perfectly organized. and
then everybody's mad and they're going to attack, and then
there's actually a fairly complex little battle scene that happens here, with Jesse starting off with like Poison Sting from Dustox, and then Krogunk uses its Poison Sting to block that Poison Sting, and then Turtwig and Piplup go for a Bubble Beam and Razor Leaf, and then that gets countered by Cacnea's Pin Missile and Carnivine's Bullet Seed, and it's just like a flurry of explosions all over the place.
It's a whole lot of nothing happening, and then Roserade runs off in fear. But no, it's to grab the red scarf so that Roserade can come out as a ninja.
The red scarf that's just on top of these clothes in the drawer with no other scarves.
No other scarves ever.
It's great. Apparently, she only needs this one scarf.
Right.
And then Apom tries to go for Wobbuffet, but this is the one time Jesse decides to use Wobbuffet's Mirko, apparently.
Yeah. To block, not send it back like it's supposed to.
Right.
And then Veneer uses Ice Beam, which is blocked by Sandstorm?
Yeah, of all things. I was like, okay.
Alrighty.
I guess Baniri's not a very high special attacker.
Yeah.
And then out of nowhere, Team Rocket is bombarded by a flurry of magical leaf.
Magical leaf. That's magical leaf.
Yeah.
And Roserade is there, all bedecked in red scarf. And then Cynthia's like, I know that red scarf. Really? It's been in your house.
Yeah, I mean, forever. I hope you know it.
Okay. Does Roserade have their own room with their own dresser that Cynthia never goes into? Like, she acts like she's forgotten that this red scarf is like, are you not washing it and keeping it clean? What is this? Do you have a maid service? What? Fine. And then she's surprised at why Roserade is suddenly so aggressive. And then Meowth does the thing where Lotad explains and Meowth translates that Roserade is the guardian of the garden. And uses the scarf to gain confidence in exposition theater.
It's literally like a PowerPoint presentation behind Meowth and Lotad of it, like taking out burglars, bribing a Snorlax to not eat the garden, and then like fighting off Aridos.
And then Pikachu used Quick Attack to break the mecha, which doesn't work because they have giant baskets that are smaller than the giant basket that they have all of the fruit in. So not only do they have a giant skyscraper-sized basket, but then they have 3 person-sized baskets
as projectiles
somewhere that they use to fire at Ash and group. And then with them trapped, Meowth is like, I'm going to steal the scarf and you'll lose your powers.
And there is a hero moment for Lotad there as it tackles for Cynthia out of the way of one of the baskets.
Yeah.
But for like, of all people, Lotad, you should like take out literally anyone else.
Anybody else. Anything else. And then Meowth and Roserade are fighting over the scarf, and then James sends out Mr. Mime to tickle Roserade, which is a cheap shot.
Mime Jr. is, he's like, oh my god, he's useful for once. So cute.
And then the scarf gets removed, and Roserade's all fearful, and then they use the robot arm to capture Roserade, and they're going to take off, and then Cynthia runs to stand in front of the giant basket vehicle.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like they full speed move towards her for like 5 minutes and they never get closer.
She ran really fast, apparently.
She ran really fast and like 2 miles down the road.
Yeah.
Also, from the perspective, it really does look like the basket would just pass over her head because the thing is so huge. I'm not sure I'm not sure what the plan is, but she does her pep talk to tell Roserade, you're as powerful without the scarf, which works. Like
the power was inside you the whole time.
Yeah. And then Roserade uses the one move you should never use on a Roserade, Petal Dance.
True, but it is its signature move, so I can see why they're like,
And it should have always been special attack, but it's attack, and Roserade's attack stat is garbage.
Wait, Grass was physical before?
When they made Petal Dance and they did the split, Petal Dance became a physical move.
Are you sure?
Uh-huh.
I don't know about that. I'm pretty sure it's still special. Let me double check that
Are
though.
you going to doubt my abilities?
Well, on Pokemon DB, it casts some doubt. It says it's special, 120 power. Oh wow, it had 70 base power in Gen 1 and 1 through 3. But I think there is another move that's like Venusaur learns in Gen 6 that has like it's also, I think like Petal Blizzard maybe, and that's physical for some reason.
Yeah, there's a lot that.
Yeah, it's like no one uses those moves though, so
No.
it's like, whatever. But Petal Dance does work here enough to like destroy the machine's tires and blast them off. And then we get okay. Lotad, like the guard's pretty much destroyed, or like a good portion of it apparently.
I mean, the whole place is wrecked.
Yeah.
It's in sad shape.
There's a lot that the insurance company won't cover, basically.
Right. Oh, and once again, Iron-Tail can destroy an entire everything because Iron-Tail rips the basket to pieces.
It's like the sword that cuts through dimensions.
It is. But it splits the atom, and all the berries come out.
And they're like, "Well, we got these berries back, but now our garden's a mess, a barren
mess." Oh, I forgot that Petal Dance was Oddish's signature move.
Oh, before? Interesting. Okay.
Yeah, I remember that now.
Oh, Roselia is a better fit. I'll say that.
So
Lotad uses Water Gun and
Roserade uses Sunny Day.
Mm-hmm.
And everything comes back to life. So we have to call this elderly woman's story into hardcore question.
Mm-hmm.
Because it was clearly a Roserade and Lotad before.
That's all you need. Like, you can recover from mass natural devastation with these two moves, apparently. And love, I guess. Maybe that's the secret ingredient.
And love. And then they make more poffins?
Right, before that, Don like mentioned something about, oh, that's the legend that they told us at the beginning or something. I was like, what? Okay. But yeah, they go back inside, make more poffins. She makes them for Baniri, Pachirisu, and Piplup, and the new Pokemon Pachirisu and Baniri are like, no, Piplup, you try it first.
Get wrecked, Piplup.
Yeah, then somehow Piplup's like, no, we're gonna all do it at the same time. So they begrudgingly and like very cautiously take a first bite out of the poffins that Dawn just made. And they love it.
Yeah, because she did something.
She learned and she's like, all right, I'll make my ingredient work for a squirrel, a bunny, and a penguin. These all have the same dietary tastes, clearly.
They're all rodents. I think they all just have the same nature because that's pretty much how poffins worked.
Yeah,
but it's weird that they did like they sort of made this recipe is good for cats, and this recipe is good for creatures on two legs that are small because they all like it. It's weird. And then Dawn's like, I had a great time. I'm really inspired for my contest.
Which is like, all right, I'll give this to her because it's poffins. But if it were some other thing, like in the previous episode, she gets inspired by this old woman who makes a cake, and I was like, what? What?
She gets inspired a lot.
Oh my god!
She finds inspiration in every situation she goes to.
No need to worry.
Oh god.
But this marks the end of the episode with like various still shots that they just didn't want to animate, I guess.
It was cheaper.
Apparently, they spent their budget on this weird cartoon-esque moment where like the house is like bouncing around earlier. That's my guess.
That literally looked like they put the house in Microsoft Paint and then just grabbed a corner and janked it around and filmed it because it was the house is so distorted in that way of you just grabbed a corner and moved it because I just like y'all didn't have budgets is what you're telling me.
Like you didn't even need this shot. Like what?
was not needed. It was just like, oh, it was so weird.
It's bizarre, but they make it through with the house in one piece at the end. It's a pretty house, actually. It's kind of unique with a little like garden outside and like a garage, like orchard thing. But this is where we end off before going into Dawn's second Pokemon contest.
Mm-hmm. I like the
So
fact that they say an error is the fact that Roserade doesn't evolve from friendship.
yes,
It evolves through a shiny stone, which is like, when has the anime ever cared about the actual way things evolve? Like, they just take liberties all the time.
yeah, the strongest case of this is probably in Johto, where Misty has a Poliwhirl and it picks up a King's Rock, and she doesn't see that, picks it up. So, or is it King's Rock? Yeah, I think that's the
Yeah, I
item.
think so.
And it puts it back in its ball. And then when she calls it out to battle later on in the episode, it's just wearing it, and she's like, "Oh, why are you wearing that?" And then it evolves. Like,
Yeah.
what? Okay, I guess it's like the stimulus is that it goes into a Pokeball with this item. But
They are fast and loose with plot convenience evolutions.
yeah, though they do emphasize like stone evolutions generally. So
Yeah. Well, they
this,
had to because of Pikachu.
but here they do kind of gloss over it, which I'm
Yeah.
like not super mad about, because it's like, time passed as it evolved. Like,
It evolved. It was all in the flashback. It's not that important to the story. Also, I will say,
Mhm.
the Japanese translation for the title is a way better title than Do You Know the
Oh,
Poffin Plan?
what is it?
The Gifted Roserade and the Flower Legend. You know, the thing that actually happens in the story.
Why didn't they just?
No,
Oh
because
man.
this season is as many
Yeah.
terrible puns that they can, in whether it fits or not. Like, they try to be clever, and they
Mhm.
just aren't. Like episode 23, faced with a Steelix determination. Like, episode 24, cooking up a sweet story. It's like, just stop.
That episode also should just. We don't need it. Like, listen to our last episode of Saito Sinnoh. You don't need to watch that. There's like,
No.
it's okay. And there also is a few moments where we see a spray duct being used, which
Mhm.
is the watering can that you get in Diamond and Pearl and Platinum. And the only main some weird piece of trivia: the only main character Pokemon not to appear in this episode is Jesse's Viper, because we see everyone else battle in here. But yeah, going back to the spray ducks, I thought that was kind of cute. I didn't even notice it at first, but it's nice that they use a key item that you get in the games in the show as well. And
Yeah.
very much in this town, I think, is where the player
Yeah, I
gets
think,
it.
yeah, you pretty much get it in this town if I remember correctly.
And yeah, last thing about the title, which I didn't realize until I looked at this, is that it's a reference to "Do You Know the Muffin Man?" The Muffin Man, a classic nursery rhyme.
Isn't that
And
classic? It's just
will you give it
dumb.
credit for that at least? That
No!
references.
I mean, the Muffin Man nursery rhyme ain't great.
Yeah,
The only thing that sort of fits is the Muffin Man, in Victorian times would deliver muffins from door to door.
okay.
Which fits with the poffin idea, because basically you're making some sort of bread. But
Right. It's a stretch.
still, it's a stretch, and it's not a good one. Because do you know
Puffins
the because
also look smaller than I thought they would be.
and what's a poffin plan? Do you mean the recipe? Do you know the poffin
Maybe,
recipe?
I guess.
You just twisted it to make it fit, and I am mad about it.
It goes through a few hoops to work, for sure. What is your overall rating for this episode 25? Oh, do you know the Poffin Plan?
I give Roserade a 10. I give the episode. I have to be honest and say it's about a 4 because nothing happens. It really,
Yeah.
it is a filler episode that introduces Poffins, sort of a plot point that could have a plot point that literally only takes 5 minutes of the story. There's some good
Mhm.
backstory for Roserade, but otherwise it's really just a standard Team Rocket comes into Wreck House episode. It's
Yeah.
pretty boilerplate. There's just some weird things at the front. Like if you never watched this episode, you wouldn't miss anything.
Mhm.
Because like poffins come in a little bit to play, but like you would never be like, oh, what's a poffin? Because I think they explain it every time.
There's some slight character development for Dawn in terms of learning how to make poffins more uniquely for different Pokemon, but that's
Don
also
Don learns that everybody has different tastes in the world. A thing everybody already knows.
it's kind of just then also showing Ash is a bad cook and not getting good instructions doesn't help the case.
It's
So,
just it's not terrible. I mean, I could bump it
mhm,
up to 5. It is
okay,
just a pure filler episode.
yeah,
They didn't even catch anything.
yeah. There's no catch. You get the introduction of a new Pokemon, Roserade.
Yeah. And Roserade is awesome in this episode.
Yeah, it steals the show for sure. I
Absolutely.
kind of wanted Ash to be like, "Oh, Roselia evolves," the same way that he was surprised that Badoo evolves into Roselia in the earlier
Yeah.
episode.
I mean, he does a little, but not
Hmm.
a lot. He's like, "Oh!" But then they move on.
Yeah, it
It's
isn't as obvious as a moment, and
I
maybe
mean,
he's
this
like,
is
"This
yeah.
Badoo line, I don't know anything about it. Everything's out the window. It might even have a Mega." Like he just like,
Oh, it doesn't have a
um,
mega. It doesn't have a Gigantamax. Thorn in my side. This is also just another one of the anime episodes that's just it exists just to point out aspects of the game that you may not have done.
mhm.
It's just like, hey, this is the completion of this line in the game now. This is Poffins, and
It's
this is the new watering pail.
I'm I'm kind of torn on if this is a good placement for it because this is the town where berries and like the spray can are kind of introduced in the games, but poffins themselves don't come until way later in Heart Home, where you actually get to
Yeah,
the contest hall and where you can make them. So, I mean, like I guess because it's already going to the second contest, it makes sense, and this is like where you get the berries, but it's not the strongest place for it in terms
is
of
there
reflecting the
even
game.
a contest thing in Floromatown in the game?
No, in Diamond and Pearl and all of Sinnoh, all the contests take place in Heart Home.
That's what I thought.
Yeah. In Hoenn, in Ruby and Sapphire, there was a contest halls in 5 different towns, but
Right.
then in Emerald, they consolidated it into one in Lily Cove, and they replaced all those with like battle arena places, which
Yeah, I
are
remember
like a
that.
preview of the Battle Frontier. It's I don't know, it's a weird choice. I don't know why they did that, but yeah.
Because
Uh,
Floromatown doesn't have much in it. It's got a shop, it's got the Pokemon Center, it's got the Garden Center, the flower shop
mhm.
where you get the thing and a bunch of flowers.
And some guy gives you a TM for Pluck in Platinum, which people confuse with Peck for some reason, but
And you get
uh
honey.
oh yes, the honey trees. That
The
comes
honey
later
trees,
actually.
the honey trees of platinum.
Yeah. I love the honey trees. I still never got Munchlax from them, but we'll talk about that in a future episode because this has been pretty much it for episode 25 of Diamond and Pearl, and this being episode 15 of Sights on Sinnoh. Greg, thank you for coming on today and talking about your Rose by any other name.
Yeah.
Do you have a preference between Roserade or Roselia?
I mean, I like Rosalia the best, right?
Okay.
Like I've never been fully on board with Roserade's design. Um
Mm.
Mainly at the bouquets because I think they didn't do enough detail in them, which was much more of a limitation of the game system than anything else because they just sort of feel like masses, which I never cared for. But there's a lot about the design that I really do like, but I like Rosalia better. I like the flower. I think there's just more detail on the flowers in Rosalia than there is in Roserade. I mean, Roserade has its own Like everything about the design fits for the concept of what the design is, and hints that Roserade is maybe possibly not actually based off of real roses, since roses aren't poisonous, but are based off of
Mm.
the actual poisonous fake roses, whose name I can't remember.
Interesting. Okay. And that's why it's a masquerade.
Yeah, because it's a masquerading as a rose bush, and also uses the masquerade mask, and the top matches the other flower. God, I wish I could remember what it's called.
Interesting. I didn't know there was like an imposter flower that
Yeah,
is
there
poisonous.
it is. The hellebore flower.
Oh, okay.
That whole species is poisonous, and they were commonly mistaken for roses.
Interesting.
They look somewhat similar.
Are they poisonous to humans or
Yes,
just animals? Okay.
believe they are poisonous to everybody.
All right.
So that's sort of like the interesting little part of design, that it's poisonous. It uses it uses the flowers in a different way. It uses the masquerade ball, including a mask and cape. It plays on the dancer for a masquerade ball, and it's got the design that went into it, and the name, which is Rose and Masquerade Roserade, all sort of tie into a very good design. Like, I do like it. I just wish the bouquets had more detail in them. It's just like my
Yes.
only complaint.
The rest of the body seems really nice and
Yeah.
smooth, and then the bouquet kind of is like a blur of the
Yeah,
flowers,
because
unfortunately.
what reads weird is that Rosalia's flowers are very detailed, and it
Mhm.
loses that detail when it goes into the Roserade form, which again
Yeah.
was pretty much because the system wasn't great at handling that fine of a detail. Like, everybody's like, "I love sprites." I'm like, well,
Mhm.
sprites were really limited in what they could do for design wise. So a lot of the design choices that you love so much was because you were a kid.
Got it. Yeah, I want to use Roserade on my team. I think if I'd known that as a kid, I would have tried to get the shiny stone on it sooner. Just because it seems like a cool Pokemon to have on your team.
I
Uh,
mean, for what Roserade can do, it is, if you know how to use Roserade,
mhm,
Roserade's one of the fastest in the game.
mhm.
So it's got a base speed of 90. So it outspeeds a lot of things. But what sells it is it's got a special attack of 125. I mean,
Yes.
if you use special moves, it packs a punch. The issue that it has is its physical defense is 65, but its special defense is 105, which is also very impressive. So
Mhm.
you have to know how to use a Roserade competitively to really get it
Make
to
it
shine.
shine.
And
Mhm.
in games, like, you will not in games is a great opener because you can get status things off incredibly fast. And then any of its like absorbs and Giga Drains all really have uh a huge punch to them. And then once they introduce the hidden ability,
Technician.
Technician,
Mhm.
it turns Magical Leaf, which never misses, into the same power as Flamethrower.
Jeez.
Because Magical Leaf is 60, so you have a grass flamethrower that never misses because Technician doubles it, uh, gives it a half boost. So it
Mhm.
doubles it, it puts it up at base 90, and base 90 coming off of 125 special attack that can't miss is real good,
Mhm.
but it just doesn't have the health to stay in very long. It is definitely like use it wisely, and you can get a lot out of it. But you sort of really have to carefully. You have to get all the things to line up to make Roserade worthwhile. And I always use a Roserade. I always breed a shiny
Nice.
Roserade in every game that it comes in, and have a shiny Roserade that I run around with. Like the one that I'm using for Dynamax Adventures has Sludge Bomb, because that's it learns Sludge Bomb, probably the best poison attack that exists. Sludge Bomb's a 90 poison attack that it gets stab on, and Magical Leaf with Technician also is a 90 grass move. And then in this current generation of games, it also learns Life Dew. So in Gigantamax battles, you can go first because you're super fast and heal everybody up if you have to. There's a lot of good things you can do. It's also one of the only Pokemon that naturally learns Weather Ball. Not that it can make good use of Weather Ball, but it is a signature move of Roserade's that outside of Castform, it was the next thing to learn Weather Ball.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I didn't know that. Okay. Weather Ball is definitely a lot more prominent in this gen than in previous ones.
Yeah, and with Technician, since Weather Ball is 50, you can get pretty powerful Weather Balls off. It's just the current existing Weather Balls, so fire, water, and
ice
really are not. You don't ever want to leave Roserade in
any of those situations,
right? Because they're all usually physical attackers. So
that's right. That's what I remember hearing is in this gen when they took out Hidden Power. Roserade was a prominent user of that for some coverage with Hidden Power Fire, and the Weather Ball could give you that coverage, but you're also now in a situation where you're weak to other Pokemon that might be able to take you out because of the weather boost.
Because of the fire types that like Sunny Day.
Or a Pokemon that have Chlorophyll and can Weather Ball you first, actually.
Yeah. So,
but yeah.
I mean, I always say, like, if you're not playing super high levels, it is a good Pokemon. It is also, it has always been one of the best hazard.
Oh, right. Toxic Spikes.
Toxic Spikes, but it can also learn Spikes. It can learn both.
Okay.
And it can get those out very fast. Especially if you are able to, since you can do, not Stun Spore, it's the
Venoshock?
It's the sleep one.
Sleep powder? Okay.
Yeah.
Can it?
It learns sleep powder, so it can get sleep powder off very fast. Which sleep powder is the bigger one of the bad. Sleep powder has a 75% accuracy, which is the best of the sleep statuses that can miss. Obviously, Spore is the one that's 100%, but it can't learn Spore. But a 75% chance, since you generally will go first, of sleeping everybody and then setting up spikes, like, there's a lot to do. It's just very fragile. And I think that's why most people, since the meta is really just hit hard, it doesn't rank very high, but you can get a lot done.
Which is weird because looking at its moveset, it can learn Rest and Snore.
Mm-hmm.
Which I'm like, what? Why would you ever use that with something that's this delicate?
You can use, like, it's not delicate against special attacks. It is if you train it, it can be a special wall. And I have special wall because it gets access to a very strong Giga Drain. So as a special wall that can heal itself, it can wall certain things. The problem is that a lot of special attacks are fire.
Yeah. Right.
And ice. And flying.
Yeah. Max Airstream coming for you. It does get some coverage with Shadow Ball, which I always thought was kind of neat.
Yeah, well, Shadow Ball is how I schooled a 10-year-old at Pokemon Rocks, the mall tour, who brought out Latias against my Rosalia, and I Shadow Balled it into oblivion.
Nice. That's how you do it.
And that's how you look at a 10-year-old when you're in your early 30s and watch them go back crying to their parents. Got schooled because back in those days, they didn't split us up by age group.
Oh, really?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I didn't know that. I thought how long did it take for them to do that?
Well, so this was before it was actual VGCs. So it was always just everybody battles for a prize, which is how I own a copy of the Pokemon Masters Master Trainer board game, because that was the prize that you could win. And there
Nice.
were multiple rounds. It was just like everybody sat down and fought, and so there was no actual VGC
Structure?
competition at the mall tours. It was just a, hey, come in battle, and if you get to the top, you win this board game.
Cool. Okay.
So I schooled a bunch of kids and won the board game and left.
And parents just glaring at you.
I mean, they knew, like, just have the kid go into the next round. Like, there was no like, you can only have one shot. You could do it as many times as you wanted.
Oh, okay. I thought it was just
It was just go sit in these tables and we'll start this round and everybody play, and the next round will start in 20 minutes because it took no time to do because it was just on the Game Boy. Good old Emerald days. I was the hit of that tour because I had just imported my Torchic Special Edition Game Boy Advance.
Oh,
From
nice.
Japan. So everybody wanted, all the kids were impressed by my
all the rage with that Torchic.
by my orange Game Boy Advance, straight from Japan.
Directly imported for this competition, clearly.
For this competition, yes.
Well, speaking of competitions, next time on Sights on Sinnoh, we'll be jumping into the pre-contest jitters, which is an episode setting up for Dawn's second Pokemon contest as a coordinator. And again, Greg, thanks for stopping by and telling us your love of Roserade and all this VGC trivia.
It is not pre-contest jitters. No, they couldn't do that. It's the pre-contest titters.
Oh my
they're
god.
Bad. Because
all right.
they're bad.
Stay tuned
They're
next
bad
time
people.
if you want to get the hot take on this with me and JM. And we'll let you know how that goes. Though I will say it's a good. Those episodes do seem to be less filler, but those titles do leave something to be desired. This one I will agree with you on. And I'm like, oh, I just totally misread this because that's not how anyone would naturally make a pun here.
Mm-mm.
But as always, I've been William.
I'm Greg.
And we'll see you in Sinnoh. Bye.
Yay. Bye.